Agency that Zumbro has partnered with to serve in our community, both to give you a chance to find out what's happening in our church, what your support goes for, but also then hopefully to spark your own interest in ways that you might make a difference in the community. This morning we are delighted to have Karen Doring here from Channel 1, Rochester's local food bank, and more. Karen is the Community Engagement Coordinator at Channel 1, and she will share more about what she does with them. Her goal also is to tell you more about what Channel 1 does besides just feeding the hungry. Many opportunities they have for people like you to help serve. So we are delighted to welcome Karen to our midst and look forward to hearing what she has to share.
Thank you so much for having me this morning on this cold, brisk day. I have been with Channel 1 about a year and a half. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator, so my roles include working with all our volunteers. I do our volunteer recruitment and our volunteer training, and also helping with schedule our volunteers. I also do our media, so I do our press releases. I work with our website, our social media. I'm trying to let everyone in the community know what we're doing at Channel 1, and also help plan our special events, our fundraisers and other events we do for awareness issues. So Empty Bowls and our Hunger Action Month. In March, I know you guys are big supporters of our food share, so I help organize all those events too. So, how many of you are familiar with Channel 1? Yes, that's what I thought. So, this is always a challenge. It's fabulous to know so many people know about Channel 1. But I think that hopefully we'll learn a few new things, teach you a few things that you don't know about Channel 1, and maybe just have you think a little different about our clients too that come here and what all we do and how important our agency is. So, I want to start by talking about what does hunger mean to you. September nationally is Hunger Action Month. And one of the things we did this past September was ask our clients and ask members of the community what hunger meant to them. So you have any thoughts when you hear that question? What does it mean to you? You hear hunger.
Well, it used to mean you think of starving children in third world countries.
Yes, kind of the initial reaction. Mm-hmm. Yeah, third world countries, starving children.
It could.
And part of my nurse's training, we spent 6. Oh, I turned it off. I'm not very adept. And part of my nurse's training, we spent 6 months in Chicago, at Cook County and Chicago Line. And some of those children had never, ever had meat. It just broke your heart. And I'm sure their children here the same way, but they were really, really destitute. And then you had 4 or 5 floors up, walk up, shared a kitchen for several families.
And that's a great point. Meat and protein is very expensive, and for a lot of families it's a luxury.
Hunger is not getting the healthy kind of food you need.
Yes, getting healthy food that's going to be nutrient rich and nourish your body. That's a good point too. Well, we asked our clients also to rate on paper plates what it meant to them. And I have a few quotes I want to share with you. This is from one of them. It says, "Hunger is not knowing if your kids are going to get lunches this week." I don't know how many people have eaten out of a trash container before, but when you have, you learn not to waste what God has given you. This is the way you feel when someone catches you is unforgettable. I thank God for those that care. Last one, as a single mother of 2 growing boys, it's hard to afford enough food at a minimum wage. We are very thankful for everyone at Channel 1 for helping our little family eat. We had hundreds of our clients actually fill out these plates. We weren't really sure what kind of response we were going to get, but it was very humbling to hear, firsthand from people, why they come, where their struggles are coming from, why they need the food shelf, and puts a face, puts real meaning behind the people that are there. There's a little clip.
My name is Ricky. My name is Fernanda.
My name's Steve. My family's lived in this neighborhood for years.
My name's CJ.
My name's Katie and I'm in the 9th grade.
My name's Reggie. Just recently, my wife and I took in her sister's children.
Budget cuts affected my husband's salary, so I went to the Army Reserve. And when I got out, there weren't any jobs left.
I lost a lot of sleep worrying about what the neighbors might think.
I'm getting back on my feet, but
The only thing harder is finding my next meal.
I just wish someone would tell me where my next meal is coming from.
I don't know when there'll be food on the table.
How'd I do, CJ?
We could be twins.
Katie, how'd I do?
Fernanda, how did it?
Little stiff.
You have to be so serious.
Can you try singing it?
I think I look more like Denzel.
That's cold.
You know, I have an Academy Award.
Not for playing me.
You drive a hard bargain, Steve.
You know it.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food.
And I want to share with you a story from one of our clients from a few years ago. Alice was her name. She approached the food shelf intake desk in obvious distress. She held a 3-month-old infant in one arm and encouraged the other 2 toddlers forward with her free hand. She sat down with nervousness that is often seen in overly exhausted people. Her fingers were hooked on the edge of her baby's blanket and followed the seams nervously as she began her story. This is humiliating for me to come and ask for help, but I need food and baby formula. Alice's husband had recently abandoned the 4 of them, and she was struggling with the shock of having been left by her husband, the family's only source of income left with him, and her upper middle-class lifestyle was crumbling, leaving Alice in a whirlwind of change. Struggling to find help and running into many dead ends, she went to social services and applied for food support. But she was denied because her husband's income from the previous month affected her eligibility. Although Alice didn't have any money or immediate means of getting any, she was still denied. Desperation widened, her eyes and her voice became pinched as she struggled to finish her sentences. The sadness that permeated the air around Alice was thick. It covered her shoulders and pushed them toward the floor. Her eyes were red from crying, and the dark circles that ringed those swollen set eyes sagged also. Alice filled out a short application, and somewhere in the space where there was hope, it had led her to the agency asking for help. Alice was given assurance that the food shelf would do anything we could to help her and her children, and was encouraged to reapply to social services in the months to come. As she walked to look for items the family desperately needed, diapers, formula, milk, and vegetables, Alice's distress slowly eased away. Alice's visits became once a month. She greeted volunteers and staff on the food shelf with a wide smile. It became evident that she decidedly changed perspective at the events that happened in her life. The optimism that she developed gave her confidence and experience in surviving the crisis and had renewed her independence. Alice was making it. She had been challenged more than she'd ever been challenged before, and had met that challenge with shock and weariness, being broken and poor, that she had survived. It's amazing how often we have stories from our clients. It's very humbling often for them to come for the first time, to have to ask for help. It's usually often children, they bring them here, if they were on their own, probably wouldn't come, but want to feed their children, don't want them to be hungry. And we're a place that can help with that. I want to talk just a little bit about hunger in general, and what it is. There's 2 different things we kind of talk about. There's your basic needs for food, oxygen, water. But we also talk a lot about food insecurity at the food shelf and the food bank in Feeding America. It's defined as people who don't have access all the time to healthy food. So people who, 1 week they may have enough groceries, may have enough to feed their children, but don't know where their money is going to come the next week. Or their car breaks and they have to pay for that. And so, it's not the starving children in third world countries, but it's still, the anxiety alone of not knowing if you're going to have food for your children next week is a huge stress. And, the children not being able to eat healthy is going to affect their learning. The face of hunger is all through. It's become younger and includes working poor, seniors, and children. Over 75% of our clients, either families with children or seniors. And they find themselves, not being able to provide. 1 out of 6 children in Minnesota is at risk for hunger. And it's all around. We see all kinds of people at the food bank. Some of them are short-term, some of them, it is a long-term problem for them. And we've seen an increase in hunger. In 1968, there were 10 million Americans who we estimate to face hunger. In 2013, it's 50 million Americans that face hunger. It's a growing problem. And the cost, the medical costs, nutritional costs, development for children is huge too. One of the areas we often talk about is SNAP. It's the food stamps simple nutritional assistance for both. And in September, we did a SNAP challenge for the food shop. We asked some people in the media to do it too, with friends. And on SNAP, a single person would have $3.86 a day to live off of. And 76% of households do include families with children and elderly persons. And the guidelines about 185% of poverty. So for a family of four to qualify, they'd get about $38,000 would be their income to qualify for SNAP assistance. Our executive director actually did this program just herself, not for children, but she found it very humbling, and I'm going to share part of her story with you too. She talks about how she'd agreed to do it. In the country, people have done it for a few years now, but we hadn't really done it here in Channel 1, and we decided to try it for the first time this year. And she said after she agreed to do it, she hadn't thought much about it until the day before the challenge started. I was at the store with my daughter, and along with the family grocery trip, she had $27.02 budget for her week for her SNAP challenge. As with most grocery stores, she started in the produce and deli section. After glancing at the prices and weighing the produce, she realized she could spend nearly her entire budget on just fresh produce. Instead of the apples, grapes, peppers, and spinach that she wanted to buy, she settled on a bag of carrots. And then she went up and down the aisles carefully, adding up the cost of other items she decided she couldn't afford to put in her cart. She passed up many items she would normally buy and focused on what she knew would fill me up and as healthy as she could afford. She got brown rice, peanut butter, wheat bread, and eggs, cereal, cheese, lean meats, and whole grains she could not afford. After checking out, she went to Quick Trip, where she realized that the milk was on sale with bananas, so she bought both of those for the week too. When she was done, she had $1.86 left for the rest of the week, for any other expenses she would have come up. She started on Sunday morning. She had peanut butter and a banana for breakfast. Not bad, since that's what she normally eats. But in a couple hours, she was hungry, and normally would grab a granola bar, but there was no granola bar to grab for her snack. So she went on, and lunch was more of the same. Hungry, stomach growl, that she had her sandwich. She packed peanut butter and jelly and carrots, knowing they would be in the car, and she wouldn't be able to afford to stop for lunch. To satisfy her hunger, she sat for a few hours, but then to start to growl again, and it was time to eat dinner. She, throughout the week, felt this, that there's a few things she wanted to share that she learned. She learned food matters. Now, we all know that, but you don't know until you don't have enough food to eat how much it really matters. She spent the week complaining to her family and her coworkers about how she was hungry. Once she was done eating her meager meal, she immediately started thinking about what she was going to eat next and what she'd be able to eat next. She found it difficult to concentrate, and she didn't have much energy, and she wasn't sleeping well either. She said taking the SNAP challenge was one of the hardest things she'd ever done, but also one of the best. She really believes what we do here at Channel 1, and she's spoken about it for years, and very passionately. But she said until this week, she didn't really realize what a difference Channel 1 makes for people who don't have enough to eat. She says her life would have been much better and different if she'd been able to visit the food shelf while she was on SNAP and been able to supplement for $3.86 a day. Because the food shelf would have been able to give her access to fresh fruits and vegetables and protein. It would have hopefully stopped some of the grumbling in her stomach. I don't know how well you can read this, but this is the statistics of the poverty rate and hunger insecurity rates in Homestead County. So food insecurity, which we talked about, people who don't know where their next meal is going to come from. It's about 8.6%, or 12,000 people here in Homestead County alone. And 41% of those are people whose threshold is above 185% of poverty. So people making over, $35,000, $40,000 a year. Still not sure where their next meal is going to come from. Cost of living here in Homestead County is very expensive. So people who are underemployed, to find transportation, housing, food, it's a very tight budget. We find there's a lot of people here in need. This is one of my favorite quotes. Sometimes it's overwhelming to think about, well, how are we going to feed 12,000 people? How are we going to make a difference? Mother Teresa says, well, if we can't feed 100, then just feed one. And if everyone here in Homestead County who had enough could share a little, it would go a long way. So here at Channel 1, we're doing a lot to fight hunger. Last year, we distributed nearly 9 million pounds of food to over 200 nonprofit agencies in our service area. And we serve about 100,000 people in 14 counties. Our mission is to work in partnership with others and help feed people in need. In Channel 1, we're both a regional food bank and a food shelf, which we're going to talk a little bit more about what that means. People often think of us as the local food shelf, but we're also a food bank for all of Southeast Minnesota. As a food bank, we collect food and provide a central warehouse to distribute food to 14 county service area in Southeast Minnesota and across county Wisconsin. So here's our service area. And so we provide the food for all of the hunger relief agencies in this whole service area, or a majority of it. So whether they're food shelves in other towns or counties, or soup kitchens, after school programs, any agency that is a nonprofit who serves a low income community and provides them with meals qualifies to be able to receive food from us. We receive product from industry donors. So we're a partner with Feeding America, so we get a portion of our food that way. They are in network with all the food producers, major producers like Kraft, Kellogg, and make connections. And we also have our local connections with the food producers in our community. So we have relationships with places like Hormel, Seneca, Faribault Foods, Malto Meal, and work with them to use their food that they're going to throw away. It's called food rescuing. It's a big part of what we do at Channel 1. Food that they're not going to use, whether it's short dated and it's not going to be able to be sold to a grocery store, or maybe it's mislabeled, mispackaged, maybe it's not produced to their quality standard, and it could be things as we had a huge shipment of ice cream because the ice cream wasn't the right color, so they're not going to sell it, but it's perfectly good food, So and it's been a very long process. We've spent years. Vince is our food resourcer at Channel 1. He's been with us over 25 years to educate the food producers as to what we can use, what we can reuse. The last couple years, we've had some new relationships with places like Malto Meal, who didn't realize we could take their bulk cereal and package it down safely and redistribute it. We have a new relationship with a hydroponic tomato farm in Owatonna that grows tomatoes, and they used to just compost all of their not top grade tomatoes. And now they sell to us, it's like 10 cents on the pound. So it's a tremendous amount of what we do. So we get a lot of it locally and then nationally through Feeding America, and then we also get food from the government. We have USDA food that is free to us, that we then distribute freely to our agencies that they can then distribute out to the food shelves. So we our agencies that take our food, all of our food's online. It's like they can go on and shop for it, see what they want for their food shelf, and then we have semis that go out and deliver it every day to our whole service area. Right now, our warehouse is 28,000 square feet. It is at full capacity, and we have a freezer and refrigerator, large freezer refrigerator that we use too. And a big part of what we do is repackaging food. We have a lot of volunteers that come in. I don't know if any of you have been a part. I know there's been some groups in Zumbro that have come out. We get food in bulk that needs to be repackaged, cereal, produce, meat, all kinds of things that come in bulk, and then we have volunteers that come and repackage it. All of our food we distribute has to have an ingredient label on it, so we have to do that too. So we'll get cans in, we get a whole pile of cans from, say, Seneca, but they need to have their ingredients labeled on them, so we do that too. And we also sort all of our food dry food that comes in too. All the local food dry food does stay here in Ulster County. We don't distribute that out to other agencies. The food that we distribute out comes from the bigger donors. And Channel 1 has a couple other programs too I want to talk about. We have our food shelf. We also have a backpack program, a mobile pantry, green garden, and commodity supplemental food program. So our backpack program is currently in Rochester public schools and middle schools, and we just distribute to about 1,500 kids a week. And each school is sponsored by a local church, and our Rochester high schools have their own food shelves. So the backpack program is for kids who qualify for free and reduced lunch, and the schools work with the social workers to identify which kids and families they feel need it. And it's every Friday, the kids get free breakfast and lunch every day at school, and they found a lot of kids weren't eating on the weekends. Going through, they were getting most of what they were getting at school. So every Friday they'll take home a backpack of kid-friendly food, and then they can have for the weekend. So it includes cereal, shelf-stable milk, granola bars, sometimes fruit snacks, fruit cups, microwave meals that they can all have themselves, and then they bring that backpack back every Monday. And the churches pick up the food at Channel 1, take it to their church, pack the backpacks, and then take the churches take them to their schools and distribute them. So it's an expensive program. We say it's about $2 a backpack per kid per week. So it's quite costly, but it's a great program. It's gotten a lot of support, and it's gotten a lot of positive feedback from the schools. They found that the attendance for the kids is actually better on Fridays. A lot of them are coming to get their backpack, and they've got a lot of positive feedback that it's making a difference. Our mobile pantry program serves about 1,000 individuals in 6 sites. These are parts of our service area that don't have food shelves, and communities aren't able to support them. You know, our food shelves, almost all of them are pretty much privately funded. You know, they're nonprofits. Huge portion of our funding comes from just donations, and the communities that aren't able to support their own that are very poverty stricken. Places like Bryceland, Winnebago, we do go out to La Crosse once a month. We go with our semi packed full of food, and so the first Saturday of every month we go to a community in the same spot and unload, and people can come there and get their food. Usually it's prepackaged box food, so they'll just come and pick up a box of food that we pack for them and do it that way. And then we have green garden programs. We have over 100 families that plant their own garden each year. We have 2 churches that donate some of their land, and we go out and till it, prepare it, and plot out the garden spaces every year, and then they, for the whole season, have access to that garden and can grow their own produce that way, completely free of charge. And one of the final programs we offer is this Honey Supplemental Food Program, and it provides a free additional box of food to seniors and mothers with children who have extremely low incomes. So it's a lower threshold income, and they qualify. It's about 1,500 boxes we pack a month. We also have volunteers that pack all of these boxes and come out and distribute. We distribute them here in Rochester. We distribute at our food shelf. We also go to some of the low-income senior high raises here in town, and then there's about 25 other sites in our whole service area where we go and distribute them. And our food shelf, which is probably what you're most familiar with, we like to say when a family comes, they can come once a month, and they should get about a 5 to 10 day supply of food when they come. They can get the amount of food based on their family size. So when they come for the first time, they need to prove that they're an Olmsted County resident. They need to have photo ID, prove who they are, and then their income is self-declared. To qualify, they need to have an income of about 200% of poverty, so it's about $46,000 for a family of 4. And they come, once they're registered, when they check in at our desk. We have a database to track all of our clients. They'll get a coupon, 1 or 2 coupons to go through the shelf, and each item, it's like a grocery store. There's limit signs above the items, so they can choose what they want, what they don't want. They have 1 card, they get whatever that limit is. If they have 2 cards and it says there's a limit of 2, they would get 4 of that item if they want them. So we try to provide fruits and vegetables. Our produce, we never have a limit on because it's so short shelved, but we often do get a lot of fresh produce in, and then we get lots of local garden produce, but we do get produce from all of our local grocery stores too. And cereal, rice, beans, we do have refrigerator freezers, so they'll get some dairy. Usually they get 1 frozen protein. And then they'll have a choice, some of our odds and ends from all of our food, dry foods. We have a whole section of, the ones or twosies from what everybody donates, and it offers a nice variety to what they get to. And we have bread. We collect bread from all the local grocery stores and bread makers too, and they get that choice too. So it's usually, a full grocery cart of food that they get a week with, depending on how big their family is and what they choose for the day. We serve about 3,500 households each month. We are the 3rd largest food shelf in the state. The other 2 are in the Sun Cities. We do have 6 sites here in Olmsted County. We support them all. So we have our one at our actual location down in Southeast, but we also provide the food for the Salvation Army food shelf, and for the Byron food shelf, the Orinoco food shelf, and there's 3 churches in town currently that are doing a food shelf on Saturday a month. We provide the food for that too. So we're trying to provide other places for people to go to if the Channel 1 site's too far away, or if they're not able to come during our open hours, to provide these other opportunities for them too. So those sites are all volunteer run, but all the food does come to Channel 1 at no charge. We cover all the costs for all the food here in Olmsted County. And the food shelf alone distributed 2 million pounds of food just to Olmsted County last year. We serve seniors Individuals, we do have a significant portion of individuals with physical or mental disabilities and working families. And often people at short-term crises, whether it's income, job loss, medical problems, or some personal disaster, we see people come in. And 40% of the people we serve are children. Part of we talked about how it works. They do have to recertify once a year to prove that they live in Upton County and re-declare their income. And then volunteering at Channel One. We have an amazing volunteer base. And I'm going to start by telling you, Brady is a young boy who's a junior high student who volunteered with us this past summer. So this topic is important to me because I volunteered for Channel One this past summer. It wasn't so much volunteering, but my dad forced me to go there. I hated that I wasn't wasting my summer, that I was wasting my summer trying to help people that didn't deserve it. And when I said hated, I mean hated. Before Channel One, I thought that people who went there were lazy, and that's why they were there. They were too lazy to pay their bills, or maybe they gambled and lost all their money. They'd rather spend their money on 8 packs of cigarettes. Maybe they are alcoholics. They can't think about their families because they were too busy thinking about booze instead. These people might be hooked on drugs and spend all their money on that. Possibly they are 16 and pregnant, or just plain stupid with money. It took me only 2 days to figure out that what I thought about these people was completely wrong. I'm not saying that nobody in there has problems, but let's be honest. In some way or form, we all have problems. And some of us just have it worse than others. Any of us could be in the same position as people who need to use Channel One. Then I wondered, if that's not the reason they're in here, well then what is? It could have been many reasons. The parent could have abandoned them, maybe a disaster hit them and they lost everything, maybe they were a victim of identity theft, or they were robbed. Or if they had big medical bills and no insurance. There are a lot of reasons people are in this position. It might not be their fault. Brady went on to have a food drive in his community in a school this fall and brought in food and funds that he raised just a couple weeks ago. His dad is a regular volunteer at the food shelf every week, and it was very humbling. His dad shared with me that part of what helped Brady realize who was there was he actually saw a teammate of his, a baseball player, so when I was on the baseball team, who of course didn't think I'd ever seen there, and realized that there were people just like him who were coming there who needed help. We have over 2,000 volunteers that come through each year to help us out. 20,000 volunteer hours. It equals about 10 full-time employees. We only have 25 employees on staff, so to think there's another 10 full-time free employees makes a huge difference and makes what we do possible. We have volunteers that volunteer in our food shelf. They help stock the shelves, they help in the warehouse, they help clients check out. When our clients come, so they go through, they shop, and then at the end we check their cart and make sure they have what they're supposed to have. We also have volunteers that work in the repack room, labeling and sorting. We also have volunteers that work, administrative stuff, doing filing, helping with some databases, special projects. We have lots of volunteers that help with our special events. We also have a need for volunteers to help glean or go out and harvest in the fall. We have quite a few farms that let us go after they pick. CCAP is one of our major ones that, they'll go pick their field and then whatever's left that they don't need, they let us go out and pick. And we get a huge amount of food that way. We always have a greater need for that. To get more produce if we had more people to help pick what's left out there. So picked a lot of apples this year. Fabulous apple harvest, and so we have apples everywhere on the shelf. It's been wonderful. So we talk about the future. Food insecurity continues to grow, and we're working hard to eliminate hunger in southeast Minnesota and across County, Wisconsin. We believe that no one deserves to go hungry. Channel One is working to increase our nutritious food and teach our clients about how to make the best resources available to them too.
My name is Megan. I grew up with 5 siblings, and we didn't have much money to spend on food. And once we ran out of food, we ran out of food until the next paycheck came. I remember once my sister had to go to the hospital, and my mom was with her, and so my dad was taking care of us, and he was working, and it was me and my 2 younger siblings. We had no food, and so I was like, okay, I'm the oldest. I gotta take care of this. I tried to find food. We didn't have any. I couldn't drive yet. I was like, I'll figure this out. So we go to the piggy bank, and I'm like, all right, I got a check from my aunt for the birthday. I'm gonna go to the bank, and I'm gonna get it cashed in. And I remember that it was raining that day, so we took all of our umbrellas with us, and we all walked to the bank. And I just remember the lady, how she looked at me, and she just, she felt really bad for us, and she was like, well, we don't normally do this. But she cashed it for us, and we ate because we were hungry. I wish that we weren't hungry as kids. I wish that I didn't know what that felt like, to go to bed without food in your stomach. Nobody should have to feel that way. But I know that it made me a stronger person. Because of that, I wanted to learn how to cook. I went to culinary school. I had all these big dreams of kind of going to these fancy restaurants, and so I moved to the Hamptons, and I worked there for a year. It didn't seem right that there was this amazing produce, but only certain people could afford it, because everyone should have that right. And I just thought to myself, anybody could do what I was doing in the Hamptons, but not many people are going to take the time to go into the community and teach nutrition and teach culinary arts. I would probably be better known in the culinary world, but I care too much. And so I knew that I had to find a place like Cooking Matters, where every day what I was doing was giving back, and every day I was making a difference. I get what all of our participants are going through. I know what it's like. I do Cooking Matters because I don't think anybody should have to worry about where their meal's coming from. If I can teach one family skills and they don't have to do what I did growing up, then I know I've made a difference. So to sit down at a table and to share food with people, and to show them how to cook, and to have them cook something for you, that's what makes the world a better place.
So, part of what Channel 1 is doing to look to the future and growth is we are expanding our warehouse so we can increase our capacity. And part of that expansion allows us to create a teaching kitchen. So in our warehouse space, we're going to have this kitchen that's going to be fully functional, professional kitchen, and then there'll be tables and chairs here for about, there's going to be, 12, so 24 people can go in there, and we're going to offer classes. So we're calling it a teaching kitchen and a community classroom. We're going to offer teaching classes. We're going to hopefully offer classes about food preparation, canning, freezing food. We're also going to have it open to other community agencies that want to teach classes. So whether it's finances, budget, tax preparation, family planning, all those types of things are going to be available at no charge. And it's a huge need. A lot of our clients that come through, part of their struggle is they don't really taught how to cook healthy, how to prepare low-cost foods in a tasty way, So we get to a lot of foods that our clients are afraid to, or uninterested in taking because they don't know what they are and don't know what to do with them. And we don't have a lot of control about what food we receive. It's donations. We buy very little of the food that we get, and so often we have food that sits on our shelves that our clients aren't comfortable taking. And so this is one way to help them, teach them how to use that food and just how to eat healthier and prepare healthier meals. So we're very excited about that. And part of that is our warehouse expansion. We're gonna add 22,000 square feet under our warehouse and add a new cooler and expanded freezer. Part of our other focus is trying to provide healthier food for our clients. And a lot of that is fresh fruits and vegetables, dairy, and so we need a bigger cooler to be able to store that food. In the past, we've had to turn down, corporate donations from places where we didn't have the refrigerator space to store apples or corn. We're actually renting cooler space right now to store some apples. It was a great apple season, and so we don't have enough room to keep them all in our own cooler, so we're paying to store them off-site so we can have them available for our clients. And we're also adding an additional repack room for our volunteers. We get a lot of food in, and we see more and more food that does need to be processed before we can distribute it. And so we have the double the capacity to have more volunteers in and have more food sorted and repacked. And we broke ground in November, and we're watching our building go up. It's very exciting to see out in our warehouse. They have the steel structure up now. They're going to be putting the walls and the sealing on soon. We are still fundraising for the expansion, so if you have questions, interested about that, I can talk about that a bit. And we talk about you can make a difference. There's lots of ways to make a difference, whether it's a financial donation or volunteering. If you want to volunteer as an individual with Channel One, there's orientation you go through after them a couple times a month, and then you usually volunteer in our food shelf, or you can volunteer, doing some administrative stuff. Our groups come in. I know you guys have had some small groups come in. We like to have a group of 5 to 15. Whoever it is, whether it's Bible study group you have, a family group, friends, we take all kinds. We've had birthday parties for kids that have wanted to come in and volunteer. We love all kinds of volunteers. Get a group together to come in and volunteer. We do that during the day and Monday through Thursday night. And groups that come in and help sort food. Or one of the things I'm really passionate about, which you can tell by the talk, is just advocating, helping people understand the need for the food shelf and why it's there and the clients that come. There's a lot of judgment that comes with the food shelf, and a lot of people, don't think it needs to be there, don't understand the clients that come, why they have that need, and just helping educate people to know that it's a fundamental human right to be able to have access to food. And there are lots of reasons why people come there and don't have those resources on their phone. And we can make a difference. So, what kind of questions do you guys have, or anything? Yes.
What do you expect the effect of the DFC will be?
Yeah, I think as a community, we're expecting the underemployed working forward to grow. Our exec director is on the kind of team and task force with the DFC that's talking about that, with the other social service agencies in town and what we can do to address that. But I think it's going to increase the need of food shelf for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned that you actually don't buy most of the food, I would think that actually giving you money would be a big advantage. I cannot buy tomatoes at $10 a pound, but you can. 10 cents, $10 a pound. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. You got some, right? Harlan's going to sell some, right? At 10 cents a pound. But that does require somebody to go out and buy it then too.
Yes.
So what do you prefer?
My
you want
most
everything?
important statistic, which I forgot, was we say with $1 we can provide 5 meals.
Yeah.
And that is, it's stuff like the 10 cents a pound for the tomatoes, which is, it's actually pretty rare we buy it, but we need money to get all of the free food that we get, because we have we go pick it up from all of those businesses to save them costs, so they don't have to pay to ship it to us, and then the cost of processing it, the packaging, the staff to be there, all that stuff is, yes, it's definitely, the dollar goes a lot longer when you donate it to us. But the donated food helps give variety too, so they're both very much needed.
Just a comment, you people do amazing work. The first time I visited with someone like you, it was about 40 years ago, and it was someone who educated the underemployed on how to shop and cook. And she told me that many of her clients, for instance, she'd help them, she'd actually go to the grocery store with some of them, because many of them would just buy prepared meals. That's all they knew how to do. And I said, well, why wouldn't they buy the basics and cook on their own? She said, many of them don't even know how to boil a potato. So you just wanted to compliment you on the amazing work you do at educating people.
Well, cooking is a taught skill, and so if your parents, family don't teach you, it's kind of a passed down thing. And I feel very blessed to be at Channel One. It is an amazing place, and it's a great place.
My question is, I've seen this happen quite frequently in the neighborhood I'm in. It's rental property, and when people move, it's amazing what they discard.
Oh, yes.
And my question is, if you had people take their cleaning products that are open, is that acceptable to donate?
I don't think so. We typically don't take anything that's open. Yeah, I bet there were, I wonder where, I bet there are places in town that would though.
Jen would know.
Our garage is already full of that.
Just a note, I paid quite a bit of attention to charities, the efficiency of charities, and go to Charity Navigator and lean more towards the 4-star charities. And you have a very high 4-star rating with Charity Navigator.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you get a lot of bang for your buck by donating to them.
We work very hard at keeping our administrative costs down. We spend, very little on marketing, very little on, getting else stuff. So, and part of that is the fact that we have such a huge volunteer base. Helps us to do that. That's a big difference.
If you want to volunteer, do you go down to Channel 1 and sign up there? Is that where you go?
That's a great question. Now we're actually we do volunteer orientation twice a month, and so if you go to our website, you'll see that the next 2 available times in January. We usually do one during the day and one in the evening, and it's a 45-minute to an hour orientation. Kind of a lot of what we went over here, and then we go over a tour, talk about how to sign up. For individuals, we now have our volunteering online. So once you've gone to orientation, you can go on to our online schedule and sign up for shifts whenever works for you. So some volunteers volunteer regularly. We have volunteers that have been there 20 years and work every Monday. It's just tremendous. But we also have a lot of volunteers that that come through short term. So it's if you want to volunteer once a month, once a week. Usually it's at least a 2-hour shift, but 2 or 4-hour shift. And there's a huge need for that. We like to have at least 4 volunteers on staff at a time in our food shop. So we have about 75 volunteers a week just in that program alone, but there's always open shifts in there, always need for more.
Zumbro does not currently have a regular time slot that we've been covering, but we've had a number of people asking, especially over the last couple of years as more of our small groups with the 40-day experiences have gone out, and people have had a chance to see what it's like to volunteer at the food shelf, to feel what it's like to make a difference. We've had people expressing an interest, and if that's something, the biggest thing we need, I believe, is just a coordinator. We've seen with community food response the kind of difference it makes when you have someone in a church who's passionate and willing to take the lead at just getting the coordination done. So one of the things we'd like to explore for the future is, can we find a set spot, a first Tuesday of the month for 6 to 8 or something, that Zumbro could regularly have a presence, and then give people a chance to come. And if you can volunteer once a year or every other month or every month, that would be a great way for us to make a tangible difference in our community.
This is not a question but a comment, excuse me, and Karen isn't mentioning it, but there are some very exciting conversations going on between the Southeastern Minnesota Synod and Channel 1, and I think I can speak to that. And that is that our new bishop, Bishop Delzer, will be rolling out within the next few weeks and months a synod-wide, year-long initiative to reduce hunger insecurity, or food insecurity in southeastern Minnesota. And we think we're very well positioned to partner with Channel 1 because our synod area is almost exactly the same as the Channel 1 coverage area. So there's some very exciting conversations happening. You'll be hearing much more about it. It's I think, going to be an amazing opportunity for all of us. Again, synod-wide. Every congregation, every ELCA member in southeastern Minnesota will have an opportunity to be part of this. And just so you don't know, although Channel 1 is certainly an independent community nonprofit organization, we do have a little corner on their world because both the executive director and Karen happen to be members of ELCA congregations in our community. So it's a really natural partnership. So.
What is your website?
Sure, it's helpingfeedpeople.org. And I have business cards and little cards in the back that if you want to pick up when we're done here, we'll pass those out. Or it's also, we advertise as helpingfeedpeople.org, but it's also channel-1.org.
And it's on the handout you gave too. It's right here.
Hopefully it comes up on the top.
And I'm assuming if you're not comfortable with websites, you can also call.
Yes, you can call me anytime. And my numbers should be on some of those numbers on there. I have my cards too.
So we wanted
to share just a couple of things. Ann also serves on our mission and outreach team here at Zumbro, and so we are starting to have the conversation about how might we as a congregation respond to Bishop Delzer's task that he's setting before us. And so I think there's a couple of ways that we'll be able to take a look at this. Many of you were at the Mission Discernment Night that we had back a month or two ago, and it was really interesting to hear one of the things that came up from a variety of tables of how are we going to live out who God is calling us to be here in our community had to do with hunger. There was energy behind possibly a community meal or doing something. And so that is one of the things that as a mission and outreach team and a congregation, I think we are going to continue to look into. If you were here last Sunday, you heard Pastor Byrne share his story about the kind of connections you can make and really accompany people on a journey when you're able to reach out in that way. And so that's one thing that we'll be looking at. The other thing will be, I think, partnering with Channel 1 to figure out where are the gaps. When I was at Hosanna for the 2 years, for one of the years that I was there, they were focusing on hunger. And all of the outreach that we were doing focused on hunger. And so I led a team to Chicago, and we did a hunger-based mission trip, which, of course, shameless plug, you could all come with me this March. But what happened out of that is that the people who went on that trip had this whole new imagination for ways to serve people. And so that is one of the driving forces behind why Hosanna has a pantry now, because people saw how it happened. And if you know where Channel 1 is, it's way down there. And if you don't have a car, it's really difficult. And if you do have a car, but you live on the north end of town, it's a lot of gas money to get there and back when you're really watching everything that you spend. And so Hosanna became a Channel 1 food agency. They host a pantry. Channel 1, you could tell more about how this works, but yeah. Channel 1 brings all of the food in, and they basically prepare the room and they staff it. And then there's an area where people that live on that end of town can more easily get to get their food. If you look at gaps, I was just looking at where this is, and the Salvation Army is right downtown, not too far from us, but there aren't any evening hours available. So let's say transportation is hard, and you live somewhere central to downtown, and you actually you're a part of the working poor, and you have a job, it's hard to find a place to go. So I think that will be some of the things that we'll be looking at in the next year as we figure out how might we as Zumbro respond to living out this mission.
So I've always had an interest in rural poverty and addressing the needs. Kind of been involved with some food programs in the past for a few years. It's always seemed like there's a niche that needs to be filled. Can you comment on some of the efforts either within, southeastern Minnesota or farther out?
I think one of the things Channel 1 is doing is the mobile pantry. Those are in rural communities that we're going to provide that, because there's a huge need in those communities. And I think too, I'm very excited about the bishop's kind of call to address this. And I think collectively, to come together as a synod and brainstorm ideas and resources and let people know what's out there, I think there's going to be a lot of connections and relationships that are made that will open a lot of new doors for people to provide opportunities. And whether it's here in Rochester, maybe there's support a food shelf in a community that doesn't have enough of a population base or income base to support that. I think there needs to maybe be some outside the box ideas to see how to help that. Yeah, I mean, they're gonna need support, and it's not gonna all come from those communities. There's not enough people there to do that.
Yeah. George, we mentioned products that are barely used, and is there a place? I have taken like shampoo that my hair doesn't like very well to Goodwill, and they'll take it. I mean,
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't go with an empty bottle, but, if you've used a little bit, they'll take it, so some things, they take.
We'd like to say thank you, Karen, for the hard work that Channel One does to feed the poor in our community and to feed those who need help. It's fantastic to have agencies, and thank you for all of the support that you give. Why don't we close with a word of prayer and some announcements and head out. Gracious God, we are hungry. We're all hungry in so many ways. But some of those in our midst feel the physical effects of hunger, and we know that you have a heart for them. Help us to have a heart for them too, to see the needs, to respond with open hands, to support agencies like Channel One that make such a difference in our community. Bless their ministry, the many, many families that they give hope and food to. Continue to help them be strong as we look to the future in ways that we can ensure that someday no one will lack for food. In your name we pray. Amen. Our forum will take a break next week. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Coming back in January of 2014, we're going to spend the first few weeks taking a look at some of the big things that God is doing with the mission of Zumbro. The first week of the 5th, we'll spend a little time exploring the congregational assessment that many of you took last May. It's been incredibly important and helpful as we have been on a mission discernment process to figure out what God is calling us to. So come on the 5th, find out a little bit more about what we learned about Zumbro and our future from that assessment, and be ready for conversation about Zumbro's mission the month of January. Merry Christmas to all. May God be with you.